once had a rocket with a tip of engine red. I lit it in a field of gold, stood back and watched it float overhead, just like I'd imagined, just like Mama said.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about those prompts. That's kind of the for the assignment you're doing, and there's a lot of cool detail you put in there. How detailed the prompts can be.
Yeah, I mean, I think I find like when I'm working with especially novice or kind of early on songwriters, the more parameters you can give them, the easier it tends to be for them to write a song. If you tell someone who's never written a song, well, just go write one.
Yeah.
That's so scary and so daunting. But if you say, listen, I want you to write me a verse and a chorus, and the verse has to have an A, B, C, B rhyme scheme, and the chorus has to have A, B, B, you have to use at least one minor chord somewhere in it, and and your verse and your chorus have to start on a different note of the melody. That's a lot for someone who has some musical skill but who's never written like their own original music before to start. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like I have a place that I can go to. So I think that the more challenging ones are the ones that you see in professional situations where it's like, okay, so-and-so wants an up-tempo song in the style of one of these three songs, but not to this and not to that, and it needs to be X, and it's like, oh my God, that could be like a billion different things. But those are really advanced, professional songwriters who are able to, they do that. I mean, I have students I assume she's like, yeah, this is the text for the assignment I got. It's like, so-and-so wants a song, upbeat, kind of like this. We need it by tomorrow, 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh. But I think like if you've practiced your craft and you've practiced doing these kinds of briefs, you get good at understanding what you're listening to and how to dissect it and how to analyze it and spit out something that's kind of like that.
Yeah. So. Yep. Comes down there's not a whole lot. I mean, there's a lot of variation you can do, but there's some main musical patterns throughout theory and throughout the composition and form of the song that are pretty standard. Yeah, one thing I do is I like with the kids who learn, I teach them the chords in the key, like C or G, and we just do the 1 through 6 chord, not the diminished. I'll put that up. For years I put that up and I'd say, okay, let's make a composition. I'd say pick a chord. They have 6 to choose from, and still to be like, I don't know what chord to start with. What do I start with?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So to prove that to them, I would say I would roll dice. So if they got a 2, then they did the 2 chord. If they got a 3, and then we'd build the progression that way.
Oh, fun.
So just to get them started,
I'm going to steal that. I like that idea.
And then they'd go, well, maybe they'd go, I don't like this 2 chord here. So, okay, now you're composing. We can change it around,
Yeah.
Just to get them going.
Yeah, but songwriting's fun.
Yes, it is. I do enjoy it myself too. I'm going to check the tape. Okay, so I have a lot of questions. I'm not going to get to all these, but we can do like a part 2 or something sometime. Maybe.
I can do lightning round. Like.
Okay, I'll do. Yeah, let's do. Oh, this. I'm going to have to. Let's see here. I have some questions. Maybe I'll ask this. Yeah, I'm going to ask this. This John Churchville. You know John Churchville, right?
I do.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. He gave me a couple questions to ask anybody who's involved in music education at all. And This is for the Michigan Music Education Association podcast.
Okay.
He's supposed to be starting soon, I think. So I have 2 questions from that. Do you mind if I ask you those?
No, go for it.
These are John's questions. So, and you might have talked about. No, I don't think we've talked about this much, but okay. Here's the question. Question 1 starts with a statement. As of today, music education in public schools serves roughly 20% of the total population and population of students. What can we do to get that number to 100%? That's his question.
And is he talking about a certain grade, just to be a little more?
I think it means like K through 12, like 20% of the children have a music program or are being reached.
Are being reached.
Yep.
Well, I mean, if you're K through 5, offer it. Like it's just part of the curriculum. I think like that's the number one thing is, and then in that age group also kind of expose them to everything. Like it's not just classical music or just little kid songs, but it's like listening to the pop music that they listen to. What do they listen to? You know, like it's engaging them in all kinds of music making. World, like I don't like the term world music, but music from everywhere in the world, you know, whether it's like one day they're listening to music from China, another day they're listening for music from South America. So by the time they would get to middle school, they're just kind of hyped about like that music exists in the world and that it's broad and big and it's just as big as the world. And then I think when you get into those other like 6 through 12, it's offering things that the students understand and the students can see themselves in. And not, I mean, not to dissuade like choir, band, and orchestra, but those are so, they're not really doable once you they're such institutional learning processes that, and they don't engage the whole person, right? And they're not necessarily engaging with the student at a level that they understand. You know, if they're really into hip hop and punk, it doesn't translate super well into choir. It doesn't translate I mean, choir is okay, but you'd need a band behind you, like playing funk punk music, you know, like, and it kind of translates into like band, but not super well. And it doesn't really translate to orchestra. So like, if that kid is into it, you just lost them because you're not offering something that even looks remotely like something they might want to do. I think technology, adding popular music as an option, it's not going to take away from the others. It's just going to get more kids involved in the music. And if they get involved in doing popular music styles, and by that I mean kind of anything that's not jazz, classical, or musical theater, anything in that, they're going to get interested in music, which could also get them interested in these other avenues. They're like, man, I love singing. Cool. This isn't enough. I want to sing all the time. So I'm going to join the choir because they sing all the time. And now I have 2 music classes, you know, or man, I love playing the guitar. You know, you know what? I'm going to join the band because I can play guitar in the band and guitar in this other ensemble. Like you get them hooked and it's like, where else can they do it? You know, and having school music look more like the music that they do at home and helping them understand that, I think is the way. I don't think we'll ever get to 100% just because music isn't something everybody like lines up to do. But I think like you can engage students in a lot more than we are.
Yeah. Yep. A perfect answer, I think. And I remember one of the persons I asked mentioned when I asked that question, I go, why does it need to be 100%? Because not everybody wants to do music. And I agree with that, right? It shouldn't be forced, but it should be there. I think for anybody who wants in any school to explore it, it's something they can do. They have the option to do it, right?
Yeah, and they have an option to do it in a way that feels authentic to them, not just because people will just self-select out of something that they don't see themselves in.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I think that your answer to as far as the curriculum and the changes in not sticking to choir and band only or the traditions has pretty been the same answer from everybody. Introducing these new ideas, and a punk rock choir sounds like pretty.
I mean, that sounds amazing. I mean, that would kind of work if you can get a band to play with them. I mean, that'd be like, you know, and make the right sounds. You know, that'd be cool.
Well, I did. I said I did only guitar today when I first talked. I had ukulele today too, and we did a Ramones song on the ukulele.
That's fun.
So that's what he could be, the punk rock ukulele. It's electric ukulele too. Wow, this is the idea I might explore. That sounds totally cool. All right, so I'll do. There's one second question to John's.
Okay.
I think you've already answered it, but maybe I'll ask it. We can add some detail in.
Okay.
Where do you hope to see music education in 10 years? I think a lot of the things you mentioned in the curriculum kind of cover that.
I hope that we just have a more universal openness to all of the music, and it's not one is better than the other, that they're all worthy at the same level. We don't teach Mozart to, you know, or we don't teach pop music to get to Mozart, and we don't, you know, you're not putting one in front of the other. You're recognizing that You know, the Ramones are awesome. So is Mozart. So is Miles Davis. So is Hamilton. So is Jay-Z. So it like and so is, you know, Bali music, you know, and Bollywood music, and so is Russian folk music, but not they're not compared to each other. They're like, I mean, you might compare an analysis to like how are they different, but not as like, well, this one is that we have to get to the Mozart and we have to get to the jazz, or we're not teaching you music. It's like, no, they're all valid forms of human expression. That's what music is. And that just happened to be the way people were expressing themselves in one very small part of the world at one time.
Yeah.
But why aren't we talking about what else was happening while Beethoven or Mozart? Like, I mean, there was music around in the world. It's a human thing. So why aren't we learning about that? That's always the world music. I'm like, no, that's what I mean. Like, we all live in the world. Like,
Yep.
I can't, if I'm in Australia, then all the world music is something that's not in my country, instead of like, well, it's just, I think I just wish we would be more open in 10
Right.
years and
Yeah.
very um engaging, and like the decolonization. I mean, that's a really big fancy word of the music classroom, where all music is just recognized as awesome, and we help students just kind of figure out like what they like. Um
Right. Yeah. And it's cool to see. I mean, you don't want to hear the same thing and see the same thing all the time. So seeing at school, like we do with John Churchville, actually, we do assemblies a lot. Not now, but we actually
yeah.
still do virtual assemblies. We've been done some virtual ones, but we bring the Indian music in, like the violinist from South India and the a vocalist from North India, and we talk about that 2,000-year-old tradition. There's a 2,000-year-old
It's
tradition
amazing.
of just rhythm.
I
The
know.
rhythm is insane.
It's insane. It's intense. Not to mention the quarter tones that we don't hear. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like nuts.
Yeah, so
Um,
there's always more to learn. Um, we could probably talk forever about that stuff. But I'll do some of the close to the end. I'll do some of the quick fire questions.
okay.
Uh, but if you want to tell a long story for it, that's fine too. But these are some of the fun ones. We got some of the serious talk, and it was interesting. It was good to hear. We'll do some of the crazy fun ones here. So I always do the worst gig, best gig question. Like, if you, from your experience in all of your years of gigging, is there a worst gig you can think of, or a best gig, or it could be one of the worst or one of the best?
Let's see. Best gig was probably like so far was my CD release for Spark. That was 2015. That was a really fun night. And not that I haven't had equally awesome things, but that was just something that still sticks in my head as pretty awesome. I mean, I think one of the worst gigs, I was on tour and booked a show at a club in a different city, and like no one showed up. And that's just the worst. It's like the worst fear realized, you know, and we were late to the gig because we got lost, and like the venue owner was angry because we were late, and then we didn't bring any people in, and like it was just it was terrible. And it kind of ruined my reputation with that particular venue.
Yeah.
They're closed now, but yeah, it was bad. And I just remember feeling terrible as
Yes.
a band leader, as an artist, as a human being, of just like the shame that was put on me. And I hate that about the music business. It's like, yeah. So yeah, short answer.
Yeah, so you have some bad gigs. If you're the band leader, that's, you just feel it for everybody, and that's
So
that's a horrible
terrible.
spot to be in. You're like, and you can say I'm sorry, but you still have to go through the whole experience and getting back home and everything. So,
Yeah.
Okay, great. Can you tell me about some of your main musical influences and inspirations, like a singer or a musician?
Yeah. So let's see. Joni Mitchell, Bill Evans, John Mayer, Taylor Swift. Uh, who else? I was just making a playlist. Oh, and all my students. Actually, that's a weird, maybe like no one would necessarily know who they are, at least not yet, but especially in the last 7 years, I think my students' music has influenced me almost more than anybody else,
Cool.
in terms of what I'm writing. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to convey that creative spirit that you love to somebody else, and you get to see it growing. So it should be an inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, and just the songwriters that I was working with. I mean, it's just been, like any songwriter, Carole King, Paula Cole, Sarah Bareilles. I mean, you want to like go naming people, like, yeah. But yeah.
And your original music, would you call it? Would you say it? You can hear that influence in it?
Yeah,
Yep. Okay.
most definitely. I mean, there's a song on my album called Halcyon Morning, my upcoming album. And I sent it to a friend and they were like, man, that song kind of sounds like a John Mayer tune. I was like, cool. That's, because
Yeah.
it was influenced by one of his songs.
Yeah.
And so I think, definitely. I mean, you can hear that. There's some Joni stuff in definitely you can hear that. In the music itself, just in like the creation.
Right. Yeah. Overall, it's the spirits in there for sure. Right. Do you have a favorite piece of music you'd like to sing?
These days, kind of anything that's brand new that I'm working on. So, right now that's a song called Sugar that's not out and won't be for a while, but it's about sugar addiction.
Okay.
And it's just dumb fun to sing, and it was fun to write. So it's like a dun 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 dun. It's like this kind of jazzy, like swingy tune, but I can hear like Stevie Wonder-ish kind of like vibe in it too. So
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I just wrote one. I asked what it's pre-K class, and I asked any songs you want for the next. We got come once a month. I go visit them, and I said, "How about some winter songs?" I just done all the holiday songs, right? I'm like, I looked up, okay, what are winter songs, for kids? I'm like, these are all horrible. So I ended up writing my own.
I have an album of 9 of them.
You have 9?
With yeah,
well,
F Flat Books published it. You should go. It's all winter, non-secular. I mean, they're just secular, like winter songs for kids.
Well, I can check,
and they come with backing tracks and like coloring book items.
That's it. That's what I needed. I needed to Google deeper.
Well, it might not have existed when you were. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, so that's definitely a cool resource. So that's going to come around every year, right?
Yeah.
We need another one. What do you like to do outside of music? Some hobbies and interests?
Well, I started knitting about a month ago, which has been weirdly fun. I tried it probably 10 years ago and I just failed so hard. And I don't know, I saw this company, they're called Wool and the Gang, which I was like, that's a cool name for a knitting company. As a musician, you're like, Cool in the Gang, Wool in the
Yeah,
Gang.
that's
Like, that's awesome. And I told my husband, I was like, yeah, that looks kind of fun. And they showed up as a Christmas gift. And they have these huge needles and this really fat yarn, and it's super easy. And I find it very relaxing. I work out a lot. I take long walks these days. And I also work a lot in video editing. So for my album, one of my kind of COVID goals, which was kind of there to help me just be creative in a kind of non-musical but musical adjacent way, is I'm done with 11 of 12 videos. So I have a video for every single song on my album. And there's
Wow,
stop motion. Like I taught myself how to do stop motion. I taught myself how to do lyric videos. They're not like, music videos of my face and me dancing and things like that, but just a different way to be creative. The one that's out right now is Birdsong, and I folded about 50 origami birds, and I stop motion animated them moving through the song. And I mean, it's not, amazing, but I'm proud of it because it was the first thing I ever did, and it was fun. So
yeah, it's endless what you can do creatively, like with just video, stepping into a new field. And you did it for every track, huh?
I've almost finished. I mean, my goal is 12, so yeah, I have 11.
Yeah. I have a couple. You don't have to answer these in depth, but I would like to hear your take on this, because I think with what I've heard from you so far, it's going to be a very productive answer for people looking to get into gigging and stuff like that. Can you describe? Let's see, what's my wording on here? Oh yeah, it's very simple. What do you do to prepare for a gig?
Ooh. Practice. And what that looks like is, I mean, if I'm going to play solo piano and voice, if I'm going to do that kind of gig, I set up with in front of a mirror with my keyboard and I watch myself as I practice. And I actually practice all of the talking. So, hi, I'm so glad you're here tonight. And like I practice it like I'm an actress practicing their lines. And I learned this from a theater friend of mine because she was watching a gig of mine. She's like, Kat, your songs are great, but you're losing the audience. And the reason you're losing them is because you're fumbling in between. She's like, once you get on that stage, you have to keep them. And that kind of stuck with me. And so I practice what I'm going to say in between. And if I'm doing it with my band, I will practice the songs and also practice what I'm going to say. And then when I write out my set list, I have little cues of what stories I'm going to tell and where. And it's not like it's scripted and I've written it out. It's just like I've practiced it so it feels normal. So I don't forget people's names. So I don't, um, so I tell the story I want to tell when I'm up on stage. And I've really thought about that. I mean, and that's taking a page from, if you go to like see a Beyonce show or a Taylor Swift show, I mean, this stuff is choreographed. It is up there. They have practiced it. Like it's rare that you're going to see them like move off of those things because it's so timed. It is, the lights are timed to different things. And so, and they'll roll with it if something happens. But I mean, they're doing it at that level. Why don't we do it at this level? It's like you can practice that stuff. It's completely something you can work on, and you can work on feeling not dumb, and not saying, well, yeah, thanks, yeah, so yeah.
And if at the performance, there's lots of little things. If you're practicing in front of a mirror and you're practicing all those little things that you need to say in between songs, there's probably lots of little things that come up. Like, well, okay, in between this song, I have to do these 5 things on my keyboard and talk. What's the best solution? So you figure out all those little details too by doing that.
And you figure out how to deal with the pedal that keeps sliding away from you, like, so it doesn't do that when you're on the gig. And then, I mean, I think the other part of it is like, I, figure out what I'm going to wear and like I put it on and I move around and I move as if I was holding a microphone and I make sure that I feel confident and comfortable and that, that it just feels like I can move in the way that I want to move. So I'm not restricted by my clothing because often here in New York, you're restricted by space. Like I know that if I'm going to do a gig at Rockwood, my space is like teeny tiny box and I don't get to move much out of that. So I'm going to practice a lot of like hand motion moving because I cannot take a step to my right or my left or I will like knock my guitarist or bass player off the stage.
Yeah.
So yeah. Being comfortable and knowing what I'm going to do and and it's you have to be willing to roll with it because invariably something's going to happen. But if you've done your homework, then even if something does happen, it's much easier to roll with it because you're prepared. You're not like, oh, I'm fumbling. I didn't practice that transition on my keyboard,
Yeah.
So
I think it's good for people to hear because they say the performers think you just walked in the door and played for an hour and then left. There's so much more that goes into it if you want to do it well.
Yeah, I mean, even just like having this Zoom conversation, like 10 minutes before I was finishing dinner because I had kind of a crazy day. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get this all set up. I've got like 5 minutes, and that's why I emailed you. I was like, I'm running 5 minutes because I needed 5 minutes to like get, but I practiced it so many times. I've set this up so many times that like, I knew exactly where everything was, and it was just like, okay, cool. And that's the kind of thing that, practice prepares you for is that those weird things that come in, you're ready.
Yeah.
So.
I've done like some conferences where I do an entry to entry. Like this is not seen at a conference. I don't think you generally, but just to be goofy, I would enter to theme music. So I'd have it. I could play it remotely from the hallway. Everybody in there sitting, waiting, And just people are more engaged then because they're like, what's going on?
That's awesome.
And then they listen the whole time better because they started out fun, this isn't going to be boring. So.
I mean, it's like a television talk show, they enter to music. Why shouldn't we? That's awesome.
Yeah, especially at a music conference.
Oh my gosh, you should do that. That'd be amazing.
Yep. You can pick some crazy fun pieces too. And I come in, I overplay the entry, like, waving, hello. Back in the day, I would shake everybody's hand.
Oh, I
won't do that now, but I think that's all the questions. Nothing. I don't think I missed anything. And is there anything you want to add that you think is relevant or important to say?
I don't know. I mean, I have a new album coming out on February 26th. That's exciting.
Well, that's
it's called
new.
Dead Reckoning. That's been like a good 6 years in the making. And I'm pretty stoked about it.
Where is it coming? Where can people find it at?
You'll be able to find it on all streaming channels.
All the streaming, okay.
Everywhere. And if you want, I actually have discs. I have CDs that, people will be able to get off my website or Bandcamp, probably. If people still have things to play them, or they just want a coaster, as we call them. It's like large, oversized coasters.
It's nice to have the art sometime.
It is. I mean, and I painted all the pictures for the artwork. I don't. This has been really fun. Like, I had a great time. It was a great end to kind of a crazy day.